Hello, welcome to Adventures in Dolls, the United Federation of Doll Clubs YouTube channel. My name is Karen Allen and I'm your host. Today our program is on Skipper and it's presented by a young lady that I admire very much. She works very hard. She is one of our editors and her name is Ashley Ciro. She also has her own YouTube channel, Cupie83, so you might want to check that out. In the meantime, if you have any comments on our channel, please leave them in the comment section below. And don't forget to like and subscribe so you don't miss your next adventure in dolls.
Hi everyone, my name is Ashley Brooke Ciro and I am here to present a really fun presentation called Beyond Skipper, Interesting, Rare, and Unique Skipper Doll Accessories and More. So my name is Ashley, as I said, I'm a blogger, YouTuber, and massive Skipper fan. All my links are down below and I will definitely leave them in the chat at the end of the presentation today. So I connected with Skipper as a kid growing up during the heyday of the large anime ice Skipper dolls that were made in the late 80s and 90s. So growing up, my mom had and still has a huge collection of dolls. You can see them in the background of many of our videos that we do here for YouTube. I knew I wanted to collect dolls because I'd seen her, I grew up watching my mom collect. So I knew I wanted to collect. And I knew I wanted to collect something that I could complete one day or get close to completing. So I decided to go with Skipper because she was a doll that was my age when dolls were most impactful on me specifically. And I think most impactful on many kids when I was, like growing up as an 8, 9, 10-year-old. And I also wanted something that I could kind of complete. There are people that collect the whole world of Barbie, and that's great and amazing, but I wanted to have kind of like a blueprint of what I needed to collect if I wanted to complete a collection. And so I chose Skipper because I knew, there weren't 1,000 Skipper dolls made. There were quite a few, and there's a ton of outfits, and there's lots and lots to collect within the Skipper world. But if you look at that compared to the entire like Barbie collecting world, Skipper is an obtainable collection. So I decided I'm going to concentrate on Skipper. And of course, my collection has grown since then to have many other doll types in there, but I still think of Skipper as my collection focus. So let me show you a few pictures of the dolls I have. We have this one. This was seen in the Toys That Made Us end credits. If you have not seen the Toys That Made Us, it's a really fun documentary TV series on Netflix that talks about the creation of different toy lines, and one of them was Mattel. At the end credits, which of course we all know Netflix loves to skip, at the end credits of every episode, they do show collector photos, and this is a photo that I submitted and that actually ended up in the end credits of the show. And you'll see some of these dolls in the presentation today. We also have this picture, just shows you a variety of Skipper dolls. They come in all shapes and sizes, as you see. And this picture is a picture of 3 of my favorites. What I like about this and why I put it in here is you can see these are 3 dolls that came out in the same time that all look unique. Some more of my favorites. We have Cheerleading Skipper, we have a Teen Skipper, and we have a Courtney with the brown hair. Courtney is one of my favorite friends. I don't talk about her in this presentation, but she is one of the coolest friends to come out of the 90s. Twist and Turn, always a favorite. I think that was a Japanese-made Twist and Turn in this picture. We have a Straight Leg Skipper, and we have another Teen Skipper. Again, some more of my favorites. I put in the Western Skipper here that's redressed in the Disney clothing because I know there are some people who really love this face mold. I am not one of those people personally. I don't see a lot of great things in it, but I know there are people who grew up in the 70s and really like it. So I wanted her to at least be represented in one slide. So before we get into the unique and strange, hard to find, and unusual things that we'll be talking about today, let's talk about your basic Skipper doll. This is the baseline. This is what you traditionally see at doll shows. So when I say skipper, you're probably thinking of the ones in the slide. Straight legs, side glancing, straight hair. She was released in 1964, and she was a doll that was created to appease parents who thought Barbie was too mature. So the Skipper dolls have a more childlike appearance. They're about 9 inches tall. They have straight legs. Later, they were sold with bent legs, and they were sold with 3 different hair colors: blonde, brunette, and Titian. This head mold was used for a little while. It was actually used all the way up until the 80s. Another thing I want to point out here, too, is that this won't be a history presentation. This is definitely more of a glance into my collection and a look at some of the things that you might want to add to your collection that maybe you've never seen, that are hard to find, that are just really cool pieces. So that's kind of the gist of this presentation. So we're going to start off the program with sample, prototype, test market skippers. Prototype and test market skippers are they're actually my favorite vintage skipper dolls. If you're not a skipper collector, you may not be able to spot them right off the bat, but hopefully after today's presentation, you'll have a little more knowledge. So if you're at a doll show, you can be like, this skipper looks different. I wonder if it's a test market skipper. That's my goal here, guys. So these aren't actually prototypes in the sense that we think of the word. They are more likely salesman samples, or actually more likely just early versions of Skipper. So it's hard to know when these stopped circulating, but since it's common to find sample skipper heads on normal bodies, I think these were probably released just within the first couple of years of the Skipper doll release. Just to get rid of the stock heads that had already been produced. Sample skippers are easy to spot because of a few key attributes. So first, we're going to talk about their heads. So sample doll heads they have a more innocent expression, and I'm going to show you some examples in the next slide. But their face paint is done in a way where they definitely look more innocent and more childlike than what we traditionally see. They also have 2 rows of bangs, and their bangs are very short. And if you pop off their head, you'll see there's no writing on the rim of the head, so it doesn't say Mattel or anything like that. Also, the sample body has a shorter stance, or they're shorter. The sample body is shorter because of the wider stance that the dolls have. They have less shiny, rougher legs. Some people say they're resin legs. It's hard to tell, honestly, but they do have a different look and feel than your usual skipper body legs. And also, maybe the biggest thing with the body, if you don't notice the stance being very different, if you just look at the foot, these dolls, the early skipper bodies, have Japan written toe to heel in a very big marking that says Japan, and it goes toe to heel. Whereas traditional skipper bodies, it'll say Japan in very tiny letters going kind of across the ball of their foot. So that's a sure bet. If you see a doll that says Japan toe to heel, that is a test market body. So as I said, they can be found in mixed and matched ways. You'll see here in the picture, the tall doll right here is actually on a normal skipper body, but it's a test market head. And this doll is on a test market body with a test market head. So you will see her stance is different, tiny, wider stance. Their bangs are short, but they don't look like mom cut them. But this one is shorter by a good chunk. So this is a 1965 Sears Christmas book, Christmas catalog ad. And you'll notice this was when they were introducing Skipper. It is a bunch of test market dolls. That is what we see here. See the wide stance on all these guys. Another thing you'll notice on test market dolls is their hair is a more natural shade. So you'll have a brown hair that looks more natural than the regular one. Blonde looks more natural. It's a different shade of hair. Here you will see, I did the test market dolls here on my left. this column right here. And there's two of just the traditional skippers you'll see. I can definitely tell a difference, and I hope you can too now. You'll see the face paint on this brunette. It looks a little softer than on this one. Same here. Also, the hair, the bangs, you can noticeably tell a difference with the bangs. Much longer in length, although this is still a great length too. So that is just a look at, I look to compare the test market skippers with the traditional vintage skippers you'll see at your doll shows. So another skipper that you will want to add to your collection or look for if you are a collector of the strange and unusual is Japanese skippers. I love, love, love my vintage Japanese skippers. They're truly some of my favorite dolls in my collection. In fact, this brunette here was one of my first big purchases as a collector, so I will always cherish her for that. Japanese skippers were made between 1964 and 1966. They were sold in swimsuits, also dressed fashions, in boxes with really special stands, which I'm somehow the owner of one of them, and you'll see that in another slide here. They were packaged with, as I said, special stands that said Skipper, and they were embossed with gold writing. And these were straight leg only, and they had brunette, red, and blonde hair. You can spot a Japanese skipper right away because of her eyes. I'm sure you've already noticed this skipper has black side glancing eyes with a hint of blue shadow. Usually these styles have black eyebrows, although some can be found with brown. They're also prone to fading too. So you'll also, if you see one that hasn't faded, that's a special one. Or it's been repaired or, brought back to life by another collector. But mostly, like this girl right here, the face will have faded. There are some exclusive fashions for these girls. Specifically, there's a kimono that was only sold in Japan in a boxed skipper release. So let me show you some of these guys up close. This is my brunette. I adore her. And her eyes are just so, so pretty. And then I also just recently received the blonde that you see on here from her original owner, who shared her story with me, and it was amazing. And I was so thankful that she thought I was worthy enough to take care of her skipper doll. But I love it. And they're just really nice dolls to have in your collection if you collect skipper or if you collect foreign issues. So I just wanted to briefly talk about hair colors, because when we're talking about the hard to find or the rare or the unique, one of the things you have to talk about is hair colors. When it comes to hair colors in vintage skippers, you will see quite a few when you're looking at straight leg skippers. By the time the bendable leg was coming out, there was less variation. So when it comes to blonde dolls, you can have blondes that are lemon blonde. You can have two-tone blondes, so they have two tones of blonde in their hair. You can have platinum dolls. A lot of these blondes, for whatever reason, are brittle. I do have a lemon blonde that you'll see in a moment. She's the coolest hair. You'll also hear about skipper dolls with color magic hair, which is an interesting term because it's not exactly the same as color magic Barbie hair. At least I don't think so. But it's just hair that has oxidized to funky colors, basically. So there's an orange copper penny color, which is so cool. That is considered a color magic skipper. There's a strawberry blonde, which is more of a pinkish tone. That is a color magic skipper. And these were sold as redheads, which is the interesting thing. There's an auburn, which is a very intense red and brown color that was sold as a brunette. And there's two tones. There's also brunette skippers with these variations. So there's black cherry, which is a super cool hair color. It's the rarest hair color and changes in the light. So sometimes it looks black and sometimes it looks dark red, which is very cool. There's raven, which is a very dark black hair. There's two tones, again, two brownish tones. And there's two-tone color magic that may have more red tones in there, but it might have started out as two brown tones. So that's the magic of color magic. And a couple other notes. There's some tan straight leg skipper heads that made it onto bendable leg bodies. So you might see some of that, but all pink skinned bendable leg dolls have standard hair colors. So by that point, Mattel was done messing around. They were like, we want these 3 colors. And just my PSA for today, if you have a skipper and it's sitting there with its original headband hitting its vinyl, please remove it. Please, please, please. You don't want Green on Skipper. Skipper doesn't want Green on Skipper. So take off that headband, replace it with something else. Just take it off your doll. There are too many mint in box dolls wasting away, turning green because people did not take the headband off of their doll. So please, my PSA to you, take the original headband off your dolls if it is currently on there because no one wants green ear. Here we have some examples of the interesting hair colors in my collection. So we have a raven black, or the raven hair color, which is a very dark brown. I honestly thought this was the normal hair color for Skipper until I started doing research because 2 of mine have this raven hair color. And this is my mintiest girl. I love and adore her. She's the best, but she has very dark hair. Lemon blonde, very brittle hair, but looks really cool. And yes, she is missing a bit of her nose, but we're going to ignore that. And then my color magic, which isn't the best example of a color magic, but it's definitely on, I believe it's a red-headed doll, and the hair oxidized to a much redder color than you would see on a Titian doll. Here is another doll with a strange hair color variation. So we've kind of jumped into the 70s here. So this is Pose and Play. She came out in 1972 and kind of was out till 1973. And she has she's commonly found with strawberry blonde hair, which you will see here. This is my doll. I bought her mint in bag. This doll was sold with a playset called a swing arounder or as a baggy doll. So mine came from the bag. But this hair color, which is adorable and precious, and I just adore this doll. I love everything about her. This hair color is not the only hair color you might see. You might also see her as a pale blonde, like here. The pale blonde is much harder to find. I personally am holding out hope that I'll see one at a doll show, but I mean, it's been years now and I have yet to see one. So I don't have one of these in my collection yet. She has much paler hair than this kind of like strawberry golden blonde that you see here. You will find them online. They're a little more pricey, unfortunately, but I'm holding out hope that I'll just stumble upon one day. Living Skipper also has a hair color variation. So Living Skipper came out from 1970 to 1971 with a cool body that's bendy, and she just has really fun style to her, and she has fun lashes. She's just a really cool doll. And there are actually 3 variations of her. We have the normal one here with the bright strawberry blonde hair. This doll is basically mint. I got her mint in box, but she has this nice like strawberry blonde hair. She was sold in a trade-in box first, and then in her own box that said Dramatic Living Skipper. And these both dolls that you see on the slide were made in Taiwan, which is important to remember. So this is a normal hair color, but there's also a pale blonde that you will find hidden amongst the treasures here. So it's it's a very different shade than this one. She is much harder to find. I personally, again, have never seen one, and I'm hoping to find one day. But this pale blonde is much harder to find, so it's worth looking for if you are a Skipper collector. So this is just some advertising that is all about Living Skipper, and you will notice, which is why it's included here, it is all the pale blonde Skipper. So this makes me think that Mattel was all set to go with the pale blonde when they were shooting this, and she was supposed to be the doll that everyone saw. And then eventually that changed between, early in production that changed because this is all pale blonde Living Skipper. So cute, right? We should all have one in our Skipper collections. Okay, the third variation, I said there were 3. You've seen the normal one, you've seen the pale blonde. They were both made in Taiwan. This is the very best velvet set. It was a Sears exclusive living skipper. And she is, of course, one of my favorites too. So unlike the living skipper that you just saw, both of those dolls with the strawberry blonde and the pale blonde hair, those were made in Taiwan. This one was made in Japan. It was a Sears exclusive, as I said, and she has just naturally pale blonde hair. It's more natural looking, and there are different fibers used than the Taiwan version. So this is what she looks like, and she's just so cute. And you can see the differences here. This is the Taiwan version, and this is the Japanese version. She is very reminiscent of like a twist and turn skipper. So I like how those kind of have a more delicate, pale look to them. She's very similar to that. But this one is a little bit easier to find, I think, than the pale blonde Taiwan-made doll, but still a thing that you might have to search for if you're looking to add her to your collection. Still, the very best velvet set, living skipper, so pretty, 100% worth adding to your skipper dolls. And this is her ad from the 1970s Sears Christmas catalog. You'll see they used the Japanese-made doll, and this is what she came with. Fluff and Tiff. Okie dokie. So I wanted to just briefly talk about Fluff and Tiff. They are 2 friends that you don't really see very often. So if you're a vintage skipper collector, you have probably seen Ricky and you've probably seen Scooter, but Fluff and Tiff are definitely 2 that you'll want to keep an eye out for. Fluff was a living skipper's friend in the early 1970s, so 1971. So she was friends with living skipper, and she has blonde hair, pigtails, and brown eyes with rooted lashes. You will see her right here. So that's Fluff. Super cute doll. Was only released as Fluff for the living skipper. She never made an appearance again. And Tiff right here is Pose and Play Skipper's friend. So 1972, she's definitely a tomboy, straight brown hair, brown eyes, no lashes. They share a slide because they have the same face mold. So while Fluff and Tiff only made 1 appearance, they do have the same face. And I shouldn't even admit this, but it took me way too long to realize they had the same face. You don't know what curly blonde hair and rooted eyelashes like do to change the face until you look at these guys, and you're like, oh no, that's not the same. Oh wait, no, maybe it is the same. So it took me way too long to figure that out, but they are definitely worth looking at because they're really fun friends, and they were only released for such a short period of time. It's just so sad. Here's some more pictures of them. So you'll see Tiff and Pose and Play Skipper, and then you'll see the living skippers with Fluff, who was their friend. Just super cute dolls. The boys. A conversation about the unusual in the realm of Skipper would not be complete without touching on the boys in Skipper's life. So if you're looking for a small collection to concentrate on within your collection, make it these, because it's so easy. There aren't that many to collect. So I wrote about Skipper and the male dolls created for the line in the winter issue of Doll News. I recommend checking that out, but here's a brief rundown. So we all know there's Ricky. He came out in 1964. He was your typical boy next door. We all love him. And then we had Scott in 1979, who is definitely a product of his time. But he uses an Osmond body. So the Osmonds would hold a microphone, which is why he's in this strange position with his hand. So it kind of they repurposed the microphone hand into an action pose for Scott. He has a curly afro that would only be it was the 70s. It was the late 70s. So he has a curly afro that completely reflects that. and he was only released once, and there were no extra outfits. So as far as I know for him, he's a strange doll. He's not my favorite, but I've heard from a lot of people who say that Scott is their favorite of the men in Skipper's life. My personal favorite though is Kevin. Again, I think it has a lot to do with growing up when I did. Kevin is the boyfriend of Skipper from the 90s. He actually had his own clothing line, so there are some outfits that were made specifically for Kevin, which is super cool and unique to both Ricky and Scott. But I do enjoy the Kevin dolls. So here's some pictures of all of those guys. An easy thing to look for if you're just, you want an easy, small collection of Skipper items. So in 1989, Mattel gave Skipper a facelift by the way of a new face mold with large animated eyes. I generally call this the anime eye era for Skippers because it reminds me of an anime. And with this relaunch came the first black Skipper doll in 1989. So from 1989 through 1997, any black dolls in the line were representations of Skipper. They weren't a friend, they were Skipper. And in 1997, after Mattel aged Skipper up to be Teen Skipper, there were a few black dolls made as Skipper, but they were kind of few and far between because they had introduced a friend named Nikki into Skipper's friend group. This era is the only era that had black and white versions of Skipper. So if you're a black doll collector, or you just like collecting tiny things that you can very easily get all of, this is what you want to look for. So there are a couple examples of these guys right here. We have Homecoming Queen, Cool Tops, Babysitting, and Pet Pals. Really cute faces, unique faces. They definitely follow suit with what was being produced in the late 80s and early 90s. Baton Twirling, Cool Crimp, Pizza Party, Phone Fun, Cool Sitter, and Pajama Fun. Pizza Party and Phone Fun used the mold that was kind of between this one and this one. Very few Skippers were made with this face mold, so it's definitely one to look out for too. But these are some examples of things you can find. And I think this is actually all of them, honestly. So like I said, it's pretty easy to collect them all. So I think it's worth noting some of the later released 2 sets because they are hard to find. The Barbie Skipper sets, Let's Drive, and Pajama Fun totes. They were released towards the end of Skipper's run, so they were less popular, I think. And because of that, the prices are now a little bit higher for the products. So the Toys R Us exclusive in 2000 was the Let's Drive gift set. It's very cool. Comes with a car. It's Skipper driving and Barbie, in the passenger seat teaching Skipper how to drive. And it's so cool. It came with some really fun accessories. And Pajama Fun is a tote gift set. It was a Walmart exclusive, came out in 2003, and was one of the final Skippers to be released before she disappeared for a little bit. Again, they're just fun dolls. They are harder to find, especially if you collect the sets, like the Barbie sister sets. These would fall under that. And I wanted to quickly talk about some cases before I let you guys go for the evening. So a lot of the cases I don't own a ton of cases, but there are some that are actually highly sought after cases. And I really do like the cases. It's just they're so cumbersome to display sometimes. But I wanted to talk about a few of them. So let's talk about Purse Pals. It comes in both blue and light pink, and it was made in 1965. So like many of the early cases, it was made by SPP for Mattel for the Canadian markets. And unlike any of the other cases, it's not actually branded for Skipper, but there's clearly a Skipper standing on the shelf above a girl playing with Suzy Goose furniture. I mean, there's no denying that that's a Skipper. She's in a Skipper outfit. She looks like Skipper. She has the headband, all the things. Another case is shown here. It's a Canadian case, 1965. It's in blue, and this is rare because of it's the dove case, but it's rare because of the flowers that are on it. So you will see it without the flowers, which I think is still somewhat rare, but it's even rarer when there's the flowers and the doves. There's an ultra rare white version that I've never really seen before, just once online. And this blue version, while easier to find, is still pretty tough. So it's definitely one to keep an eye out for at a doll show. And then the 1966-ish Miss Teen case. It's technically a clone case, but it fits in well with the Skipper collection because it looks like a mod Skipper. Interestingly enough, I think we need to talk about Skipper's sports car. So interestingly enough, even though Skipper couldn't have been more than like 9 or 10 when she was released in 1964, she had a sports car marketed with her image. So it's affectionately known as Skipper's Mercedes-Benz, but it technically belonged to both Skipper and Alan. The tagline, "Skipper rides with you," and Alan's new Roadster makes it an item that both Skipper and Alan collectors will want, or car collectors in general. It was made by Irwin, who was making the Barbie cars at the time, back around 1964 and 1965. There are some color combinations you'll see, but the most common is this dark green color, which is the one that I own. But you'll also see it in teal and orange. There's also a red one that was a Montgomery Ward's exclusive, which is so cool looking. I added this to my collection last year. It was a random happening, and I'm so lucky and happy that it happened. So this is Skipper's Dream Room. It was made in 1964. Like all the furniture sets back in the 60s, they were made of chipboard, which is a fancy name for thick cardboard. So a lot of them did not survive because obviously you play with these things, they get wear and tear. Heaven forbid, like there's a flood or something and it gets on this chipboard, because then the whole thing it's just a mess. But this was made in 1964. It used sew-free and cut-and-button accessories, and there were lots of Mattel products included in it. So just to give you an example, Skipper's Dream Room is definitely a product of its era. As I said, there's a ton of accessories that come with it. They're all made of chipboard, and there's some made of fabric. But what I love about these early sets is that they feature more than just Barbie branded items. So we see the Looney Tunes on the dresser, or on the shelving, and then we see the Barbie guitar. And these are all things Mattel was selling at the time, or they had licenses for, which is great. The best thing is the miniature dream house, which has to be one of the coolest things ever included in any like accessory playset that was produced by Mattel, because your Skipper could literally play with the dream house. It's just the coolest accessory. It is very big though. It's huge, as you can kind of see here. So it's very hard to display, but it's a very cool playset if you can get your hands on it.
You've all met Mattel's famous Barbie, Ken, Midge, and Alan, but you haven't met Skipper. She's Barbie's little sister, and she has beautiful long hair you can really brush. And because Mattel's exciting new Skipper is smaller than Barbie, she has her very own fabulous fashions. They're all just as perfectly made as Barbie's. Skipper loves to go everywhere with Barbie, like rehearsing for the ballet. They go skating along with Ken. Skipper even has her own masquerade costume for the carnival. That's Barbie and Ken, and that's Skipper. You'll love brushing her beautiful long hair. You can get Mattel's new Skipper and her fabulous new fashions wherever toys are sold. And this tag tells you it's the genuine Skipper, Barbie's little sister. You can tell she's Mattel. She's swell.
So did you catch that subtle but striking change that was made between shooting that commercial and the Skipper that would eventually hit store shelves? It's her eyes. So they're forward facing throughout that entire commercial. There is no side glance. As we know, Skipper has a side glance. But in this commercial, they're forward facing. So her prototype had forward facing eyes. And I'm so curious as to why Mattel made that change. Like, I just really want to know. I think Skipper looks great both ways. And you'll notice they definitely make a point to show you Skipper in this commercial because it's her commercial. This is interesting because it's an ad from Playthings in May 1964 that shows this Skipper with straight gaze here. But then down here, it's side glancing. So they were definitely mid-transition there. But the original commercial definitely shows a very unique prototype. I wish I could tell you if any of these are known to exist, but I am honestly not sure. I haven't seen any pop up on Ruby Lane or eBay, so whoever has them, if anyone does, must be keeping them under lock and key in their collection. So if you know anything about that, if you've ever seen one pop up, I would be very curious. But it's very interesting. So since I will never own that prototype, I actually commissioned one for myself. I connected with Krista of Krista's Doll Restorations, and I had this Barbie, the Skipper body, and I was like, can you try to recreate the Skipper in this ad? And she did an amazing job. You'll see the eyes here. I probably should have put her on a test market Skipper head, but that's hindsight. She still looks great as is. But she just looks so cool. So this is what Skippers would have looked like if, the doll in the commercial was what was on store shelves. It's crazy. And I thought this was a perfect doll to end the discussion on today. Before I go, I just wanted to talk about some resources. This is the best Skipper reference guide ever. I would just ignore the price guide aspect of it. It's really great for identifying cool Skipper things. And this is a really great website. It's where some of the pictures were found, but also a lot of the information for this presentation. Emily, who runs the site, has an amazing collection, so definitely check it out right there. And that's it. I just want to thank you all for watching. I hope this was entertaining. Sharing my collection is just so much fun, and I love talking about Skipper, and I love sharing Skipper. And I think I really love just showing people things that maybe they'll want to add to their collection or add to their eBay watch list, and things like that. So I hope you saw something that maybe has inspired you to go further and look for some fun Skipper products.
Hello and welcome back. We hope you enjoyed the video today on Skipper. We'd like to thank Ashley Cyril for providing it. If you're not already a member of the United Federation of Doll Clubs, become one today. It's easy enough. Just go to the website, ufdc.org, and fill out the forms. And be sure to tell them Karen sent you.